Portugal's minimum wage is €870 per month as at January 2025, but can you actually survive on that? Some jobs pay a little more, even up to 1,000, 1,200 and 1,500 before and after taxes. But then after these taxes, it becomes a different ball game. We have rent, food, transport. How much do you really need to live in Portugal? Stick around as we break down the real cost of living on this budget in 2025. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you're planning to move to Portugal or you just arrived Portugal, this video is for you. And we're going to dive deep into how far this amount between 870 and 1,500 can take you. Okay, so sit back and hit the like button, subscribe and share the video to create awareness. Let's dive right into it. I'm going to be starting with the very first basic need we would be talking about today, and that's housing. Rent is the biggest expense in Lisbon. Now in Lisbon, if you want to rent a room, I'm going to be talking in respect to singles, if you're a single person and if you're a family. So if you want to rent a room in a shared apartment in Lisbon, when you look at my screen, you would see a couple of rooms. You can see 350, you can see 360, 400. These are rooms in a shared apartment. But then I want you to be aware that this amount you see here varies. Most times it's even difficult to get that kind of amount. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is if you want to get a room in Lisbon, a single room in a shared apartment, it varies from €450 up until 650 or 700 in Lisbon. Okay, now let's talk about an apartment. If you want to rent an apartment as either a single or a couple or a family person, you have children and kids, a T1 or a T2 would cost you in Lisbon or Porto around 700 for a T1, a T2 between 1,300 and 1,500 in Lisbon. Most times it's even more than that. Okay, so Lisbon and Porto has higher costs of rent, except if you decide to move a little bit outside Lisbon, 30 minutes outside Lisbon, 20 minutes outside Lisbon, or maybe you move to a different city entirely, Coimbra, or those other places where they have, then you can find something a little bit cheaper, okay, and affordable. Now, I also want to call out that in terms of renting an apartment in Lisbon or any of these places you want to stay in Portugal, there is also a chance for you to share a room. So I'm talking about students right now. If you want to share a room with somebody, for example, in a shared room that is in a shared apartment, and you choose to stay with one person or two persons, it's also another way to reduce cost. For example, if a room is 500 and in Lisbon, and then they tell you you can share with somebody, they are likely to add something to that cost, probably €50 or €100, and ask you both to split the cost together and stay together. Most times you can also do that. And it's also usually difficult for couples with kids to have a room in a shared apartment. I'm not going to be telling you lies. I'm being very frank with you. I've seen a lot of people in Portugal that find it hard to find a room in a shared apartment for they and their kids, and they're like, oh, they're not going to take them because they have kids, because they think that the kids would make noise and bother them. So if you want to come as a family and you want to come as your kids, I'm going to advise that you start planning ahead to get an apartment of your own, T2 or T3 or T1, whichever one you feel is going to be comfortable or convenient for you. So an apartment, like I said, in Lisbon or Porto at the center of the cities T1 cost around 850, 950, 750 you might see, And then for T2 in Lisbon or Porto at the center of the cities, you should budget at least between 1,400, 1,600. That's for T2. And then Porto as well, the same thing. T3 should be around 1,500, 1,600, 1,700. But if you are checking outside Lisbon and Porto, a little bit farther away, you would get something that is a little bit cheaper. For example, you can find T2 for 800, 850. You can also find a T3 for 1,250, depending on the area. Okay. And I also want to call out that which of these or whichever of this accommodation you are choosing to get, they would always request for a caution fee and a deposit fee. So for a room in a shared apartment, your first rent would always be, you pay your first rent and a deposit of same amount. Most times they also request for a caution fee of same amount of your rent. Now, for an accommodation, which is an apartment, if you want to rent an apartment, most times they request for a lot of things, which makes it difficult to even get an apartment. They would always ask you for a couple of things. I don't want to make this video too long based on housing alone, but I'm just trying to let you know because it's very important so you know how to budget your cost. They would ask you, if you want to rent an apartment, they would ask you to pay sometimes 2 or 3 months of rent upfront with another deposit, which is a same cost of your rent. So imagine you want to rent a T2 for, let's say, let me use a little bit outside of Lisbon. T2 for 850, that is the rent, and then you're asked to pay 3 months of rent upfront. So you're going to pay 850 in 4 places and then deposit of 850 again in 5 places. This is how they do it here. In some cases, some people might just ask for just one deposit and 1 rent. Some might ask just 2 deposit and 1 rent. It just depends on whichever you find. But this is to help you prepare your minds, okay? All right, this is enough for housing. Now, let's get right into the next one I'm going to be talking today. That's going to be utilities and internet. Now, for this one, we have electricity, water, and gas. You know, those internet, those bills you pay for at home. Okay, now this is also going to be part of your bills when you are renting a house. Sometimes it's usually part of the bills when you're renting a house. They tell you it is bills inclusive, which is usually cost effective. But in cases where the bills are not included in your house rent, just have to budget at least 100 to 150 euro per month for these bills, especially if it's an apartment. But if it's in a shared apartment, which is a room in a shared apartment, you can budget your bills to be between 30 to 50 euro, depending on the season as well, because most times it's usually a higher bills during winter season. Okay, so it depends on when you are coming into the country. Just have it in mind. Okay, now we're going to be talking next about groceries and food. This is also very important. We all want to eat, yeah? So now, a realistic grocery budget for a single person, that is if you would always cook at home, should be at least 100 to 150 euro per month. But if you're somebody who goes out to eat and all of that, I don't know how that's going to work for you, but then you're definitely going to spend more on eating outside. Eating out is definitely going to cost you more. But if you are the person who cooks at home, then 150 euro should be very good to help you go through the whole month. And if you don't eat way too much, you can also save costs. You can spend probably between 70 and 100, depending on the kind of things you buy. Okay, that's all that on groceries and food. The next thing I'm going to be talking about would be on transportation. So in Lisbon and in Porto and wherever city or wherever you want to settle down in Portugal, they all have a transport pass, except for those rural areas where they don't have buses to commute, except you're traveling to a different city. But for cities like Lisbon and Porto, Coimbra, all those places, you need a monthly public transport pass. Okay, and that pass would cost you around 40 euro. So I'm going to advise for those of you that would want to come to Lisbon, because the truth is it's very hard to get rent houses in Lisbon itself. So you might want to consider going a little bit far, 20-30 minutes away from Lisbon, and you need the 40 euro monthly pass to be able to take you farther away from Lisbon. I'm not saying outside Lisbon to another city, but a little bit farther away in a different district that is not in Lisbon. okay, because there are different districts. So the 40 euro pass would definitely work. They also have the one for 30 euro, but the one for 30 euro would only cover Lisbon. And for me, my own opinion and my own advice on the bus pass thing, I would advise you go for the 40 euro to save you cost. This works for the metro, the buses, the trams, okay, that takes you all around the district in Lisbon and outside Lisbon, a little bit outside Lisbon. If you also want to rely on getting the car or an Uber, that would also depend. But I want you to have in mind that Uber are actually a little bit expensive compared to other Schengen countries. So for here, if you want to take an Uber for a distance between 5 minutes to 10 minutes, you're going to be spending at least between 3 euro to 8 euro for Uber. So if it's a distance that's from 15 minutes above, you're going to be spending way high, let's say from 10 euro upwards for Uber. So that depends on you, if you want to use Uber and all of that thing. Depends on your choice and preferences. Okay, next we're going to be talking about other expenses. Now, what are other expenses? Your phone bills, for example. They have different phone bills in Portugal. Phone network in Portugal. So if at your own apartment, or if you choose to rent an apartment and you want to go for electricity bills, they have different networks, okay, where you buy some fiber network and sign a contract for 1 year. But I'm going to ask you to please read every contract you're signing in Portugal. Make sure you ask them for whatever penalty, okay, because if just make sure before you sign any contract, ask if there are penalties, because if you're even renting a house, they have penalties to contracts at some places. So whatever contract you're signing, please, I just wanted to say this before I move on. Make sure you are asking for the penalties when you terminate the contract before it's time to expire, okay? Now let me get back to the phone bills and the internet I was talking about. If you want to get an internet for your house, for those of you get an apartment, it depends, okay? They have Vodafone, they have Mio, they have Uzo, they have Leica Mobile. So it depends, okay? So the ones that are actually good and cost effective, Vodafone is good. Mio is expensive, but they also have cheaper plans. So it's better you call them and talk to them and understand which one works for you, okay? They have different plans for networks that have unlimited data plans that might also work for your mobile phone. So you might not need to purchase another mobile internet if you are purchasing a combined internet plan, okay? So, but you just have to budget around 25 to 30 euro for your internet, okay? And then health care, if you want to go to the hospital, here, if you have your SNS number, most times you don't need to pay for the hospital. Okay, you don't need to pay for the hospital. You go to if you have that health number and your residence permit, you go to the hospital, they're going to take care of your health. You don't need to pay anything, okay? Yes. And of course, if you need to buy some medications at the pharmacy, there are some discounts, but this is based on your health number. So once the doctor writes a prescription and you take it to the pharmacy, there is always a discount. I actually found out about that recently. And but you have to be aware that if you need to go to specialty doctors, for example a dentist, you are going to pay way more. I'm not praying for any of you to have any reason to go to a specialty, except you just want to go for probably just teeth whitening and all that. But if for any reason you have to go for any health issues or health related concerns, you will definitely spend more at these specialty hospitals. So you can consider having some additional savings from that, at least just for emergencies. We don't prefer emergencies, but at least it's always wise to keep something for emergencies, right? Okay, now having said all these things, what do you think? Do you think you can survive in Portugal after paying the rent, food, transport, and just check what's left? How much can you save? I want you to comment in the section. Just drop your comment and let me know what you think. And yeah, I believe it's doable depending on where you stay, where you decide to settle down, the kind of things you buy. I think it's doable. Yeah, so We're all going to be fine. Everyone is going to be fine. And this is all I have for this video. I don't want to make it too long. Thank you very much if you've watched up to this part. I will be making another video on how to find jobs, website to find jobs, and the website to find this accommodation. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.